have to read it.
You couldn't already read it.
I tried.
No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't.
She would pull up from like the Bible.
Yeah.
She pulled up from the logo.
Literally.
Basically.
Dude, we were trying to go into so bad. Why would you? If you have 25 points and you're crushing
They were up
those.
like 40.
Yeah, I pull up from the logo.
I want a coach on this one. We bet on who would be the top scorer.
I told her about this. And her shoe game sucks. So that's all I thought.
And she was the first. That's crazy.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of the times.
Yeah, well,
it's like,
her and her brother are like both like he's one of the best of the girls team and he's like the best in the girls team. Stupid.
She followed me on Instagram.
Really?
Yeah.
Where'd she find you?
Well, I followed her first.
You left the part out.
Oh, sorry. I thought you just like,
Yeah. I thought she just like.
I thought she saw you in the crowd and like searched
Nah.
through like.
Yeah.
The randomly crossed her.
You guys explain better.
Yeah. It was kind of like a joke. Like, I was like, that was like part of the joke. I was like, to God.
You understand.
It was so funny.
It was.
Alright. So we'll review
I thought it was funny.
circles, ellipses, hyperbolas today. Again, we're just reviewing the first part of hyperbolas because we haven't learned the second part, so that'll be tomorrow. But they're similar to ellipses in terms of like writing an equation. So just to remind you guys, circles were kind of our intro to all of this, kind of the easiest ones, because we don't have to worry about the divided by part. So the center and then the radius is there for us. So like in example 1 here, what's our center? 5. So 5, -3. And then our radius is 4. So draw our circle, we'll draw our center, and then go out every direction 4, and we should be able to graph our circle pretty easily. And then out every direction 4. And then hopefully you can draw some sort of thing that looks like a circle. Not very good, they're a little lopsided. I could cheat and use my circle tool, but that seems cool. All right, so example 2 is when we're writing the equation in standard form, and this is where we had to do that completing the square. Except with circles, it's a little bit easier than like ellipses because we don't have to worry about factoring anything out. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to try that. So remember, organize your x squared and y squareds. Kind of see what you guys remember, and if you don't, you can wait for us. Or even look at example 3 if you're. Don't forget to move that constant over. Oops, I'll leave some space. So we organize the x squared, or the x's together, the y's together, and move that constant away. And this is where we have to do b divided by 2 squared to figure out what that value is to complete the square. So for like instance, in this case, negative 12 divided by 2 is a negative 6, but squared it becomes 36. So we're going to add that here, but then we have to add it to this side as well. Same thing with the 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5, squared is 25. Now this is factorable because of the numbers we chose. So the x squared minus 12x plus 36, we're going to factor that to be x minus 6 because of the negative here and positive here. And then y plus 5, because they're both positive. And then what do we get over here? Is it 49? So they didn't ask us to graph it in this case, but we would easily be able to graph it based off the center and then the radius of 7. So 6, negative 5, and then a radius of 7. Okay. Questions there? And then the last thing we do with circles is we talked about what would happen if they just give us some endpoints of a diameter, and can we write that equation from there? And that's a little bit easier than what we did here. So, oops. So they're giving us the endpoints. Now this is what I don't think graphing makes it any easier unless like you're not good at finding the middle. So you could graph it and then kind of try to eyeball the middle, but the midpoint is what we're looking for here. So we're trying to find the center. And the way we find the center is just finding the midpoint of these two. So negative 5 and 1 divide by 2, and 8 and 0 divide by 2. So I get a negative 2 because negative 4 divide by 2. And then I get 8 divided by 2, which should be 4. So now we found our h and k. And then do you guys remember how to find the other part? So if I know that, and I'm trying to find my r, how do you do that? So this is h and k. How do we find our r now? What else did they give us up here? What are those?
The diameter.
This is diameter, but what else would we call, like if you, what's it?
You get the radius, and you have the center point, and you have an outside point.
And so how would you use one of those outside points?
You would put it into the equation.
Yeah, so this is basically they're giving us h and k, or we found h and k. They've given us x and y already. They've given us 2 x's and y's. I would probably choose to use the one without a negative, but they've given me a point. They give him, now we found the center, so we're able to find r using that, which essentially is we're using, like basically finding the distance between those two, kind of distance formula. So we use our circle equation that was up there, so it's x minus h. Oops, that should be 2. Squared plus y minus k squared equals our r squared. You just have to pick one of the 2 points and then the center. So we have our r squared, which is technically all we need at this point. So now we take r squared and h and k and write it as an equation, because then we have it in standard form. minus a negative 2 just becomes plus 2. Do you remember that now, hopefully? So part of our assignment tonight will just be doing circle review. And again, we're not like quizzing tomorrow. We have a few more sections to do before we're going to test on this chapter. But I like waiting to review seemed like a bad idea. So we'll go to ellipses then, when you guys are ready. I gave you guys so the next part here, talking about ellipses. To remind you guys, the big thing with ellipses, one of like the tricks or things you have to remember is that A has to be greater than B. And that's how you determine which way the ellipse is. So since the A is bigger, that means we go out bigger because of A. Where A is bigger here, so we go up and down. So it's a longer ellipse then. So kind of try to remember the difference between that. That was different than hyperbolas. So we want to graph this ellipse. This isn't asking for all the points on this one. I don't even know if I asked that in the homework. But being able to just graph it. So finding your center and then going out. Is this going to be a wide ellipse or a tall ellipse? This one's going to be tall because of the y value has the bigger number underneath it. Now the h and k still works the same way, where it's always the opposite of what it looks like. There's our center of our ellipse. And then again, reminder that with our ellipse, we have to find, we go out in each direction. I will talk about the foci with this as well, just to remind you of that rule. So this one, in the x direction, we're going out 3, because it's the square root of that b squared in this case, so out 3. And then the y tells us to go up and down 5. Okay, so there's our ellipse. But then probably the only thing that I just want to remind you guys of is finding those foci. And those are those focus points to figure out like where, like again, those of you guys who were here, we did like this little just a quick activity with putting points on a box, and then we were able to draw our ellipse from that. So what's our formula for the foci here? Or is it C equals the square root usually? You guys remember? This is the plus one, right? A squared plus b squared? Or is this one minus?
This one's minus.
This one's, I think, minus, right? I think this one's minus, okay. And the reason I remember that is because the foci are inside the shape, so you have to go closer. And then the hyperbola, they're outside the hyperbolas. And the a is always bigger, so it makes sense that you would take a squared minus b squared. So in this case, the c, we have 25 minus 9, so 16. So square root of 16 is 4, so we just go up and down 4. So the foci in this case is a little bit easier to find, because it's not like a decimal. And again, if it's helpful to make like a little X instead of a point, it's not a bad idea there. All right. I'm gonna stop the video.